Now that I've reached 1000 subscribers, expectations for my incoming theories have never been higher. You guys want theory as frequent as I drink water. Although I still have a few more ideas for my videos, my brain is fried. Luckily, a war is not only won by the captain, it is also won by the soldiers under his command. And that's where you guys come in. You guys are passionate about God of War, just as I am. And you have come up with some theories that are worth pointing out. So, here we go. First up, we have a contribution from my good friend Kanaruhi, and it's not much of a theory as much as it is a little fact that no one noticed. She theorizes that Kratos speaks some Norse through some parts of the game. Now let's take it step by step. First, Kratos is Greek, thus speaks the Greek language. Baldur is Asgardian, thus speaks Old Norse. Now how is it that they can both communicate with each other? Kanaruhi's explanation is that Kratos is in fact speaking Old Norse, and the evidence is found on the lack of complexity of his sentences. He always keeps it short and simple.
Leave my home.
And I know what you're gonna say, Kratos has never been the talkative kind, but let's compare a similar event between two games. When Magni meets Kratos, he tells him to stand down, and Kratos replies, "No," a two-letter word. Now when Pollux meets Kratos, he tells him to return with a sacrifice, and Kratos responds, "I have come to see the Oracle, and that is what I intend to do." Again, not an essay, but the difference is obvious. So the response in God of War Ascension conforms to the idea that he is speaking in his native tongue, and with Magni's response we see someone who understands, but is not totally comfortable in speech. Also, Atreus confirms it in this cutscene.
Come on, you already speak it. Learning to read won't be that hard.
I know how to read, boy. Just not this tongue.
This would explain why Atreus doesn't have to translate between him and the Aesir gods. It's because he already knows the language. Up next we have a theory from Cody1K. He states, Kratos brings back the giants and destroys Norse mythology with all its petty gods. When he says destroys Norse mythology, I'm sure he meant the Aesir gods, since they're the ones who destroyed the giants. This is certainly possible since it has happened before in God of War 2, when he released all the titans on Olympus. Also, the Procedas point in a similar direction, which has Loki releasing giants such as Fenrir and Jormungand to cause Ragnarok. However, I do not think Kratos will cause this intentionally, since he knows the destruction that releasing two immense power forces can have on a mythology. I think it will be mostly Atreus' fault, maybe as revenge for the death of his father. This would certainly make sense the way Kratos is raising Atreus to be. He wants him to avoid the mistakes of his father, and because Kratos is the most tragic character in gaming history, Atreus might just make the same mistakes of releasing giants to cause the end times of a mythology. But first, we need to know how Kratos dies, and that's where the one with the username Pepe comes in. Great username, by the way. He thinks Thor will show up in the second game to prevent his prophesied death in Ragnarok by killing Kratos and Atreus, making a reference to the painting at the end of the game that depicts Kratos lying on the ground. Although the sentiment of preventing Ragnarok is mostly associated with Odin, it might as well be an idea that Thor shares. So he sets out to kill both of them in order to prevent his future death, and Kratos dies protecting Atreus. While I like both theories from a narrative perspective, I doubt it will happen for the implications it has on the gameplay. If both of your theories are correct, it would mean that players will take control of Atreus in the third game and battle through hordes of enemies by himself, like his father in the old games. And that's something that cannot happen. We need that bond between two characters that can keep the story interesting all the way through. In regards to the painting, I see it more as a cool way to wrap up the new series, giving players an extremely emotional moment as Kratos dies. Now the following theory, I couldn't trace it to one specific subscriber, but it seems a lot of people have fallen in love with the idea that the eagle is Zeus.
Excellent child, I will tolerate your insolence no more!
While it sounds a little far-fetched, it is still interesting. The theory goes something like this. When Zeus died, the explosion created an engraved eagle, or a phoenix, which means rebirth. However, the eagle did not mean the return of Kratos, but the return of Zeus, since after all, Zeus's favorite animal to shapeshift into is an eagle, and it would also make sense why Zeus is in Helheim, since Kratos destroyed Hades in the third game. And we all know that the soul is immortal, so where would it go but another mythology? This could be the reason why some of the Norse characters know who the Greeks are. This theory sounds certainly cool. It has a lot of potential for awesome cutscenes between Greek gods and Norse ones. So, to all who thought of this theory, nice. When I read the last theory for the first time, it hit me harder than a punch from Kratos. I first read the theory from Tyler Todd. He believes Kratos is Tyr, because he's always living like Atreus says, and this points to Tyr visiting other realms depicted on the drawings. Also, Tyr is the god of war, and so is Kratos. I get it, it's a little far-fetched, even Tyler knows that. And now it's time for me to mention the magic concept that will fix the lack of evidence. Time travel. Yes, it is cheap, but it works. We know very little about Tyr, we don't even know where he is. And we know that certain characters are on their way of becoming traditional Norse characters. For example,
Loki?
it would also apply to Kratos since he's no longer a raging beast that destroys everything in his path. He's much more wise now, he knows how to keep his cool, and with the help of Mimir, more knowledge is certainly possible. Also, if Kratos decided to walk from Greece to Scandinavia, he would have encountered a lot of other mythologies, like in Tyr's drawing. And there's more, Kratos is already forming a good relationship with a giant, and Mimir tells us how Tyr felt responsible for the destruction of the giants because he was too trusting of the Aesir gods. The key word is trusting. If you play the game, you notice how Kratos is always telling Atreus to detach his emotions towards other people. And by the end of the game, Atreus teaches Kratos that not everyone wants to kill him right away, and thus he becomes more trusting, like Tyr. I know, it's not a unified theory, but the bits are there. I actually want to explore this theory in a later video. And those were a few theories you thought of. I want to make it in the future another video just like this, so keep on suggesting ideas. For my next video, I'll talk about Shovel Knight. Yes, believe it or not, the fight against Shovel Knight is canon, and it takes place after God of War 3. That is crazy, so be on the lookout for that. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Together.
Where is this Blackwood?
Don't know. I've never been in here.
The stone! That has to be it.